Sure. Thank you very much for the introduction. And it was a very informative, interesting session. And I'm feeling very happy, actually, to take the advantage to be the last speaker, because I think a lot of the previous speaker, they explained a lot about the technical detail and the foundation, etc., which make my talk easier. And then I will just focus more, as I mentioned by our organizer, that on the business side and about the background, okay, and about the organization, corporate information, and also the business content, you know, that you might be interested in, so that I will explain like what would be the main, I would say, focus recently in KPMG Ignition Tokyo, and what are the main, you know, both business and technology challenges that we are facing. And then hopefully in next session, then we can learn more from our technology community. Okay. So cool. Just to be sure that you can see the slide. Okay. Let me know if you cannot. Cool. So basically, you know, KPMG is one of the big four, and we, you know, just one of the very traditional industry. We focus a lot on the processing of documents manually, okay, in the history, I would say. And then, you know, we really want to facilitate the digital transformation in this old industry. And then that's why actually KPMG Ignition Tokyo is more like an independent entity, you know, supporting not only the KPMG Japan entities, but also our external clients for their digital transformation journey. Okay, so as you can see here, so basically we have 3 big service line, and then audit, tax, and advisory, and which is very diverse for the advisory. And then as you know that we are the only technology hub for the KPMG Japan, and that's why we try to invest our time and resource on doing something reusable to make sure that they can be sitting on multiple platforms that can be utilized by different entities and even to external clients as a service. Okay, so for technology perspective, and you know, there are multiple areas that we are interested in, and specifically for the topic in today, and then the knowledge processing is one of the focuses that we spend our effort on. And then slightly different from our previous talks, actually focus quite a lot on the security of the data processing, which is a bit kind of a constraint to for our idea generation, I would say. And as mentioned by our first speaker, Thomas, and you know, we not only focus on the text, we also try to connect the result from the knowledge processing, let's say text, plain text, to any intelligent agent, for example, chatbot, okay, or even like VR or devices, for example. Okay, so that's something that we want to connect the only, you know, plain text processing with something more human or user-friendly to make sure that we can capture the information, especially from the body language, for example, as much as possible. Okay, as a foundation, and then we try to design our system or implement our system by considering that we want to connect them together on our common platform, because that would be the most efficient way for us to ensure the governance and security, as well as the efficiency of the development. Okay, so then as I mentioned just now, it's always difficult to kind of bridge the gap between the business context and the advanced technology. You know, sometimes they communicate in different language. So we actually spend quite a lot of effort on having the communication between these two parties with totally different background, okay, or even philosophy of thinking. So that's why we have these facilities. So basically, we try to bring our internal counterparts in KPMG Japan, as well as external clients in our Insight Center or Innovation Lab, where we try to understand what we want to do before we focus on how to resolve the problem in our Lighthouse Center. Is more like technology center, to make sure that we can have a higher possibility of getting the return if we want to invest on certain technology. Okay, So, and this is the organization. And as you know, this is we are talking about something very interesting and exciting in terms of technology. And then we try to emphasize on the diversity. And we believe that maybe the people will be something that we need to consider critically. So actually, we have a very, very diversified team. If you look at the number of participants for this event from all over the world, it is around, I think, 30, and then we are actually very close to that number. Okay, considering we actually it's not really a very, very large company. Okay, and then actually it is very, very helpful for us to kind of think about the problem for our clients from different perspectives, given such a diversified team. Okay, and then to align with the strategy that we mentioned just now, we are definitely interested in the fascinating and interesting technology. That's why we have the Kit Lab here, focus on different domains. And as you know that our clients, our entities in KPMG Japan will be the end users of our output. Okay, so we basically have like different layers and try to make sure that we can deliver something that can be really, really, really helpful and useful for their daily operation. So basically we have like the pipeline is something like we have a understanding of a requirement by doing the discussion in our insight center. And then we have like two different divisions to build prototypes or even solutions for them. And then we have a technology department to make sure that we have enough infrastructure to generalize or scale out the solution that we develop based on the business needs. And we actually keep an eye on the latest technology by communicating and working with the Kit Lab internally. And Kit Lab also working for two kind of a purpose. One is like working on the collaboration with the local international university as well. Also participated in like the latest technology community, such as Machine Learning Tokyo, and which is actually the partnership that we build brought up to this talk. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Okay. So let me just share a little bit about the business context here, and then probably you can understand like why we are specifically interested in some specific NLP technology, and they may not be, probably the latest one if you look at in the latest conference, for example. Okay, so basically, this is more like a abstract summary of the revenue of our KPMG Japan, and then audit and assurance is very important, and then also as well as advisory. Okay, if you look at it in more detail, okay, and then for auditing, as you may know, that you need to process the document a lot with different formats, and then similar for the tax. And for the advisory, apparently you may, here you have a cyber security, etc. But most of them, for example, when we talk about like government risk, etc., and then we have to deal with the Japanese regulation documents, for example. Okay, and then when we talk about M&A, I think this is also related to the patent technology mentioned by our second speaker, Sam. So that's why there are a tremendous opportunity, actually chances for us to use NLP for different service line in KPMG Japan. Okay, and then we are sitting in the kind of a foundation layer and try to support their business. Okay, cool. So I think this is maybe the main content of my talk is I want to share about our journey on applying the NLP technology in some financial services in KPMG Ignition Tokyo. Okay, so basically, if you look at the application, so I try to separate it into two subgroups actually. So the first 6 ones are more like business application, while the last 2 are more like technology application that may be applied to different business domain. And this talk, because the time constraint, I will just focus on maybe these 3 items and try to give you some insight on what we are interested in and what kind of challenge that we are struggling at this moment. Okay, and the first one is as I mentioned just now, is like our main business auditing, right? And then I'll try to explain a little bit about what's Japanese here. So basically, we try to take the different data, like the transaction data, accounting data, etc., and try to, I think also in one of the questions asked in the chat is like whether we use OCR or not. And I mean, and the answer is yes, definitely we will need to process the data in the format like in not only machine readable, but also scan image document, for example. Okay, and then as mentioned by our second speaker, we do not focus that much on the machine learning for the analytics or for the automation that much. So basically, the core part of this solution is the OCR, okay? And the NLP also plays a very important role here, because imagine if you want to use the OCR for some Japanese document where there's quite a lot of challenge that I can share a little bit later. And then usually we want to do some, post-processing to make sure the output is closed to the ground truth, okay? And then finally, we just do the simple check to make sure that they match each other at this phrase. And in the future, we may want to, based on the feedback that we obtain from our user, and then we may want to optimize the pipeline using machine learning in the future. Okay, so I want to highlight some features here of this solution. One is like it handles various document types. And then for PDF, probably, you may know that there are some open source and maybe some commercial available tools to handle it. But in Japan, there is a very special culture that people are very good and too good, using Excel for almost anything. They put table, image, formula, a lot of things in Excel, which is very amazing and efficient for their work, but it is a bit headache for our AI engineers, because they're so informative, and then there's so many constraints in the Excel, and then because you may have the link between different sheets, for example. So that's why it actually requires a lot of effort to handle the Excel file properly and try to make sure that we get the information completely, not only for the PDF. Okay. Another feature is like, I think it's mentioned by one of our speakers before, a lot of open source or even tools are developed in English-speaking countries with a big community. So unfortunately for Japanese document, there's a lack of public available data as well as a technology community. So that's why we spend quite a lot of effort and try to maximize the accuracy by combining the OCR and in-house NLP process engines. Okay, just give you some example of the noise removal if you are living outside of Japan. So in Japan, instead of the signature by using your pen, people tend to use the stems, okay? And they call it ingan in Japanese. So it's for the signature of a document, right? And the ingan, it is more like a stem on your document. And when you scan it, it depends on the location of the stem. If the stem is getting closer to your let's say table or the key information they want to extract from by using OCR, it can create tremendous noise for your OCR engine. Okay, and not to mention if you want to scan the document, let's say books, for example, and then if you fold the document, and then there may be a vertical line between two pages, okay, if you put it into the scan machine. And those kind of noise is very troublesome, and we spend quite a lot of effort in kind of handling those kind of barriers, I would say. And because this is more like financial documents, and if you want to use some open, let's say, the dictionary, for example, or if you want to purchase some, and then they may not be readily available in the market at this moment. Okay, so that's why we to increase the accuracy of the, let's say, NER, name recognition, we also spend quite a lot of effort on preparing the dictionaries and by talking to our domain expert, who usually are a CPA, chartered public accountant holders, for example. Okay, and then we did not really look at the AI or machine learning when we talk about this part, right? So, but even with very simple rule base, we can reduce the manual work dramatically at this moment. So it is very high. It is highly efficient, I would say, in this sense. And more importantly, because this is not like a one-time solution, we continue to invest on like other technology, try to embed on this solution in the future. So that's why we try to develop most of the technical components in-house, fully in-house within KPMG Ignition Tokyo, so that we can make sure that we have the full contribution, as mentioned by Chris just now, considering that we are handling something very, very serious and domain specific. And we try to make sure that they are at the same time scalable and adaptable to other solutions on our digital platforms. And the second solution that I want to share a little bit is related to the chatbot, but it's not really a chatbot because it's not really chat. So it's more like a document search service, and usually mainly based on the information retrieval. Okay, so I want to focus a little bit. It's like, and the purpose of this one is like it is used to help our auditor to get the information. May not necessarily be the answer directly, but at least the references for them to make a decision, okay, as soon as possible. So as you can see here, most of the case, with corporate is difficult to see here, but basically in most of the case, it is very difficult to provide a exact answer, okay, to a certain auditing question. Okay, so rather than saying, sorry, I don't know, we try to provide the references, and then with maybe some confidence scores, and then let the auditor, who are your domain experts, to make a decision like which one they are interested in, which one they believe they are relevant to the answer they want to look for. And then we try to record their reaction, and hopefully in the future try to put it into a machine learning model and try to make the engine self-improvement with the self-improvement capability, as I mentioned here, as the second feature. And the first feature is more like, as I mentioned just now, it's more like domain specific. Okay, so as mentioned by the second speaker, when you talk about the pattern technology, right? And the feature is more like the characteristics is like it's high contextual language, okay, and then dense long document as well as sparse corpus. And this is exactly what happening here as well. So we try to do the ML at the last as well, and we have a UI, and then we may try to get the information that the user needs as soon as possible first, and try to improve from there. Okay, and I want to mention about another feature of this system or solution is it is very secure based on our internal standard, because there may be some client information in the questions that we need to taken care of. Okay, again, this is a fully in-house development, and then that's difficult because the data set, etc., and even some open the tool developed by open community, we might not be able to use it immediately, considering the differences, the fundamental differences of the corpus. Okay, and then we try to develop, build up the data set and the engine in-house for the further scalability. And I think I still have like 6 minutes. Again, I will spend another 3 minutes to briefly introduce the last topic about the application in financial service, which is the technology is a very simple topic modeling, and then we use it for the risk and opportunity discovery applications. Okay, and this one is like we are trying to use the public data set at this moment. In Japanese, it's called Yuka Shoken Hokukusho. They're basically the annual security reports publicly available in Japan. It's something equivalent to the Form 10 annual report in US, right? And then there's a session called a industry risk or corporate risk session in every report. And then we try to identify what kind of a risk in terms of topics a certain companies care about for that specific year. Okay, and then the challenge here is like we want to look at the evolution of the risk or even opportunity, okay, for different years. And for example, in this case, because we do not really know what kind of topic will be there, we try to use unsupervised learning, like LDA here. But the problem with LDA is like, it's just fundamental problem. It's like, it is unsupervised and we need to kind of assign the topic after we get the cluster. And if you want to look at the time domain evolution, right, the time series of the topic, it is always challenging for you to assign topics for different years because you may have similar distribution in terms of the keywords within a topic, but you may not be very sure what kind of topic that you should assign to, especially if you are not really a domain expert in that specific industry, for example. Okay, and that's something, some challenge that we are facing at this moment. And of course, we can try to use some workaround like guided LDA to give a little bit more control on the topic generation. But this also kind of introduce some bias for the topic generation process, right? So actually, we are still kind of thinking about how to optimize the performance of this initiative. Okay, and it's interesting here is like if you compare this idea with the sentiments analysis in the stock market or in SNS, right? And for the sentiments analysis for SNS, right? And then because they are generated by human, okay? And I believe people from different countries share some similarity in terms of the reaction to something that made them happy or sad. But in terms of the financial statement for a company, even a risk for this company or for this industry can be an opportunity for another company and industry. And that's something that, you know, it can be regional dependent or company dependent. And that's something quite different from the commonly available sentiment analysis solution or tools, specifically for open data like SNS. So that's something that I want to share today. And